Welcome to the first episode of Cooking with Care, the show that provides you up-to-date nutrition information and recipes based on specific diseases. I'm your host, Kevin Resigno, and today's topic of discussion, diabetes. According to the American Diabetes Association, in 2018, 10.5% of Americans had diabetes. As you can see from this chart released by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, National Diabetes Statistic Report of 2020, this is an upward trend they've been tracking dating back to 1999. So what is diabetes, and how does it tie in with nutrition? First of all, there are several types of diabetes, including type 1, type 2, and gestational. For today's purposes, we'll only be covering type 1 and type 2 as they are long-lasting. However, all of the information covered today will be useful even for non-diabetics. To review development of type 1 and type 2, we start with non-diabetics. Their body is able to break down glucose from food, produce insulin in the pancreas, and absorb the energy in our organs and cells. However, type 1 diabetes occurs when the pancreas does not produce enough insulin to utilize the glucose broken down from what we eat. In contrast, type 2 diabetics are able to produce insulin, although, due to the cells becoming insulin resistant, pass up on the glucose in the blood. So what changes can you make? Understanding a nutrition label can be your first line of defense. Although you should learn the entire label, today we will just be focusing on the total carbohydrate section. For example, we will be talking about oatmeal. On the back, you will see featured at the top will be serving size. In this case, it is a half a cup dry, or what would be 1 cup after being cooked with water. Inside the total carbohydrate box, we can see how many grams are in one serving. In this case, it is 27. A tool to better control blood sugar, which we will review, is through carbohydrate counting. Carb counting is a process to estimate servings of carbohydrate by meal. 1 serving of carbohydrates is 15 grams. Recommendations for carbohydrate goals will vary from person to person. For someone who eats 2,000 calories a day, a registered dietitian may recommend 1 meal that contains about 45 to 60 grams of carbohydrate. The body can undergo irreversible damages with high blood sugar, also known as hyperglycemia. Blood vessels that supply organs become damaged and can increase the risk of heart disease, stroke, kidney disease, and vision and nerve problems. These require medications, although what we eat, like a 28-inch pizza, plays a large role in how we feel after. In our oatmeal example, 1 cup cooked would translate roughly to 2 carb counting servings. If our goal for breakfast is 4 servings, we can either eat 2 cups of oatmeal or 1 cup with a fruit, like banana cut up on top with some cinnamon. Fiber is an important part of carbohydrates, as it determines the speed that food is broken down. When a product, such as bread, is refined, it loses the parts of grain which hold fiber and nutrients. This is why whole grain pastas and breads are more advantageous with or without diabetes. The body maintains a more level release of energy when there's more fiber in a product. This provides a better overall feeling than, say, something like soda, which has a lot of carbohydrates but 0 fiber. The next tip continues with soda in reducing added sugar. This may be in products during processing or putting a sugar packet in coffee, for example. If we were carb counting when examining a 20-ounce Coke bottle, it adds up to over 4 servings, or over 60 grams. At McDonald's, a medium-sized drink is equal to 21 ounces, to put that into perspective. So rather than drinking your entire meal, using alternatives like artificial sweetener, diet soda, or seltzer water can greatly improve your blood sugar. Coffee and teas can be a hidden source of sugars as well. If you're someone who likes to go to Starbucks and get a grande gingerbread coffee frappuccino with skim milk, how much sugar would that be? 68 grams. That is insane. Moving towards black coffee with sugar-free syrups can have a very impactful change. It's important to take these lifestyle changes slowly. Incorporating a diet soda instead of a regular soda is a big change that you can make day to day. Everything you do has an impact. Every soda you don't drink, every candy bar you don't eat has an impact. And the more you get used to eating a higher fiber, less added sugar diet, the more acclimated you will be. And you'll look back and be like, I didn't even need all that. And it's just better for you, especially if you're diabetic watching this. This is very important to help you maintain a constant blood sugar so then you don't have any of the issues I mentioned earlier. So today I'll be making a sweet potato with ground chicken chili. This is a classic but swapped out. Instead of a white potato, we're going to be using a sweet potato, and instead of ground beef, we'll be using chicken. Enough talking, let's get down to the kitchen. Here are the ingredients we will be using for today's recipe. The specific proportions will be featured in the description below. It includes ground chicken, paprika, salt, tomato paste, canola oil, black beans, chilies, taco cheese, sweet potatoes, water, and scallions. Start off by washing the sweet potatoes. A tip to use to reduce some starch in potatoes is to place cut pieces into cold water. It doesn't take long for the water to look cloudy once it leaks off the surface. You can drain this and then put it in more cold water until it's clear. However, we are baking these, and so I poke holes with a fork. This allows steam to escape in the oven. I do them on more than one side just in case it rolls over. These are going to go into a preheated 425-degree oven for 45 to 50 minutes or until fork tender. Next step is cutting the scallions, which will be separated. The white part is going to be used inside the chili, while the green top portion will be used as garnish. I'm cutting these on a bias so that it adds some flair, which just means that you're cutting it on a diagonal. Then, using a monkey claw technique to not cut any of my fingers. By resting my middle knuckle on the blade, it allows it to not come up past my fingers so that it never has a chance to cut it. Now, not being done yet, separate the whites and place them in a container to be used inside the chili. Moving over to the stovetop, we're going to put our pan on medium heat and add in the oil. We'll have our guest star pop over, grab his bone and bring it, although you do not need this for the recipe. For this recipe, I used canola oil. This is an improvement from the saturated fat found in butter. It improves your cholesterol levels, and it also decreases your risk for diseases. I'm going to grab a wooden spatula, although I'd recommend using a rubber one, as you'll see further throughout the video. We're going to break that up and then toss in our scallions that we cut up earlier and just move that around, making sure that everything gets incorporated. We're going to let that cook down for about 5 minutes or until it turns an opaque white color. When you cook chicken, you want it to be at least 165 degrees internal, especially when it's ground, whether it's ground chicken or ground beef. All of the parts on the outside, which has the bacteria, get mixed in, so you want to make sure that it's cooked thoroughly. We're going to add in our spices, that's paprika and salt. Once that's dusted over, we're going to add in the tomato paste. You can see my struggle, and this is why a rubber spatula would have been better from the start. And then after that, we're adding in the chilies. So I used 2 chilies for this recipe, although if you like it on the spicier side, I'd add more in. And I'd also recommend cutting these up before tossing them in. This was my first time using them, so I didn't know, and now you can see me searching for the rubber spatula to save me from my mistakes. We're going to make sure everything's incorporated, so smush in, break apart the chilies, fold in the tomato paste, just make sure the chicken is covered with some of the seasoning and some of the other ingredients. Mix that all together, and we're going to leave that over medium heat until it cooks down for a little bit, and add in the rest of the ingredients. Next is to add in the beans. A tip for using any bean from a can is to rinse it through a strainer. This helps get off the liquid that it was canned with, and then we're going to add in a cup of regular water. Mix this all together, leaving it over medium heat, and we're going to let it simmer down, let the flavors get to know each other. After about a minute, I realized that the colors of it were a bit too dark, and since it was going to be on a sweet potato, I thought about adding in some corn. So this is just frozen corn, about a cup of it. I'm just going to fold this in and then let it simmer down for an extra 10 minutes or until the sauce is as thick as you want it to be for the chili that goes on top of the sweet potatoes. Once this is cooked down and all the flavors got to know each other, we're going to turn off the heat and check on our potatoes. When baking a potato, a technique to make sure that they're done is by checking them with a fork. You just look to see how much give the inside of it has, because we're going to be using that as a stuffing. So, checks out, and we're going to bring those over to the cutting board. Although the recipe in the description is meant for all 4 servings, as it is easier to combine all the inside and chili together in one bowl, I'll be making 1 serving. So, put it on its side and cut down. This is because while baking, it made its own base, which helps it not roll around on a plate. This is easier to scoop out when it's a little cooler. Also, doing all 4 at once and putting it into a bigger bowl. When mixing this together, I'd recommend smushing the insides first so that it's more of a smooth consistency, but alas, here we are. So add in the cup of chili. Don't cheat the camera. So we're going to add that in and we're just going to mix it together till it gets incorporated and into one consistency. This recipe is really good for leftovers. Also, any chili leftover can be put on brown rice or in a burrito, however you want it. So we're going to scoop that out and fill up this sweet potato. Fill that up, all those vegetables getting in there along with the chicken. And we're going to top it with some cheese. This is good because it looks like you're putting a lot of cheese on, but really what you're getting mostly is vegetables and some protein. We're going to move that over to a baking sheet and place that back into the oven. It's at 350, and we're going to leave that in there for about 5 minutes or until the cheese is melted. We're going to take that off. It is easiest with all 4 on there. Get it all over in one, and you have those leftovers. So we're going to place the scallions that we cut on a bias as our garnish. Throw some green onto it, makes it more lively. Don't be afraid to push down on them so they stay in place. Transferring it over to our plate, and voila, you have yourself a stuffed sweet potato with ground chicken chili. Thank you for joining me on the first episode of Cooking with Care. I hope you learned something new, and leave a comment down below on a different medical condition you'd like to see me do next. Until next time.